Aloha! Sorry for the interruption of the fifth series of our podcast. Welcome to Legends, a limited number of episodes featuring iconic surfers, shaper of our surf history. We hope you're going to enjoy them. I have to say it was a true honor for me to interview them. Hello everyone and welcome to the 8th episode of our Legends series. We hope you enjoyed the show. Today with us is Jeff Clark. We discovered with him about surfing Mavericks, surfboards, surf industry and much more. Hello Mr. Clark, welcome to the show. Where are you today?
I am in Half Moon Bay. I'm up here at Pillar Point Harbor, which is the point that Mavericks breaks into.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about Mavericks today quite a lot, of course, because you are such a legend over there, right? But the first question that I have for you today is, in your opinion, what is the most important thing in surfing?
The most important thing in surfing, I think, is how, surfing started as a very fun recreational activity. And it was the challenge of the ocean to go and enjoy the power in the ocean. And the most important thing is that you really enjoy your experience and that the only person you're trying to prove anything to is yourself.
Yes, definitely. I agree with you. Surf will be much better if we were all thinking about that, right? Rather than to impress other people or to do Instagram surfing or things like that, right? It's a experience between you and the ocean, right?
That's how I grew up in surfing. Surfing in Northern California was done by the very few, kind of like the renegades of society, as they put us in that category in the early days. Surfers, it was something a lifestyle, not I'm going to be a career surfer. If you said that in the old days, they go, well, how are you going to make a living in surfing? As we have seen from the early days to now, things have changed very much.
Oh, definitely. It became a sport more than a recreational activity, right? Even if it was a recreational activity, go through the time, yes, to the time of surf history, definitely there was also that part. And so you were talking about the early beginning, for you in California. Do you remember your first proper surfboard? And do you still have it?
I do not still have it. My first proper surfboard was a Gordon and Smith 10-foot log that our neighbors had given our family, because our family went to the beach for generations. My grandfather came over fishing from just over the hill. Basically, the family, as I know it from being a child, we were at the beach every weekend, and my father's family had 8 siblings.
Oh, wow.
So it was an event every weekend to get all the families together at a beach here south of Half Moon Bay. I was introduced to the ocean when I was crawling into it, and my parents ended up bringing a rope and would stake me to the beach so that I couldn't crawl into the water time and time again.
Okay, that was a good start. At least you were safe.
Exactly.
And then the first surfboard was a Gordon Smith, so not bad, right? At that time.
But it took my brother and I, both of us, to carry it. It was so heavy. And then one of the guys that would surf out in front of the house, I grew up in Half Moon Bay, and we built our house on the beach in Miramar in 1966. And so my front yard and playground was the ocean, the Pacific Ocean. And one of the surfers that surfed out in front all the time, gave me a surfboard, and it was a far cry from a real surfboard. He chafed in it one day, and it was, but as bad as it was my first surfboard. I couldn't have been happier. It was great. And then one of the other guys actually shaped me a surfboard. Actually, and Danny Nakaido made me a surfboard. He was a student at Stanford, and the board actually came out really nicely. It reminded me of a Plastic Fantastic lifted nose and hard rails in the tail. And so my progression started with right out in front of the house with the older surfers kind of helping me and guiding me. And, the guy, Barry Horowitz, took me under his wing when I was getting pushed out of the water as a little grommet by the older guys. And he kind of helped me get some waves and learn more about, the ocean.
Great story. And then what was the surfboard that you used the first time in Mavericks?
Oh, the board I used the first time at Mavericks was a 3.5 inch thick, 7'3" single fin. And that board was where, the transition from single fin, so had just started from the late 60s for the actual shortboard single fin. These down rail, shorter boards. A shortboard in like 1970, for us in Northern California was something between 6'8" and 7 and 7'6". I don't know. My surfboard was a 7'3", 20 inch wide, 3.5 inch thick. I was 17 years old, probably 150 pounds, and I could catch anything on that board. I could paddle. At 17 years old, you can paddle really fast.
Yeah, definitely. And do you remember who shaped that board?
It was a board I bought off the rack in Santa Cruz.
Okay.
And it was, and I spent all day looking at boards in 3 or 4 different shops trying to find the board that actually spoke to me. And it was the 7'3" roundtail. And I believe Steve Coletta shaped it.
Okay. So we start talking about big wave surfing, right? Because of course Mavericks is a big wave. What, in your opinion, makes a big wave surfer?
So when I bought that board, it was like 1974. Mavericks was really unknown to anybody else at that time. Nobody knew about Mavericks.
Yeah.
And I bought this board to surf all the other breaks, from the big Santa Cruz reef, Ocean Beach, San Francisco, which gets absolutely gigantic, and then the big waves here in Half Moon Bay that weren't Mavericks. So when that day came that I paddled out at Mavericks, I was looking at other reefs to surf, and we could see Mavericks in the distance, Brian and I, and it was plate glass, not a drop of water out of place. There was no wind. It was a nice, even swell. I don't even remember the numbers on the swell, because really, in the 70s, if you wanted to get good waves, you went to the beach every day. There were no surf cams. There were no surf reports. All we depended on was the NOAA weather radio. And so, but living here and living on the beach in Miramar, when I woke up and I saw a powerful swell and I could see the indicators on the reef, it's like you took that information and you let that run through your mind. For me, it was like, okay, if these size waves hit that reef or the other reef or the cove down the coast, or so you kind of, when you see the waves of that size and power, you start looking at the places that will hold where it could possibly be really good. And so we went up to the point, and there's a spot, a cove on the north side of the point that Brian and I always surfed. And most of the time we were surfing by ourselves in that cove because not many people really were looking for big waves around Northern California. And so when we saw Mavericks breaking, I said, Brian, let's go around, let's go check it, and it might be, I think we can surf that. And he goes, I'm not going out there. And, we went in, we parked out, we were parked out at the point. And so we walked out the trail and then all the way up the beach. We actually went up on the end of the point so you could get an elevated view of it. And it was really good. It wasn't overpowering. It looked like a giant day at Ocean Beach or a giant day in Santa Cruz at Steamer Lane. And it's like, I've surfed all those spots as really big. And so I said, let's go out there. And Brian wasn't having it. He's like they say in the movie. And I surfed everywhere with Brian. Brian and I surfed so many big waves, and usually not with any people out. It was just us. Or if we went to Santa Cruz, there'd be guys out in the lineup. But up here in north of Santa Cruz, you kind of surf by yourself a lot. And one of the reasons you surf by yourself a lot is I just talked to a guy at the beach over where I have my wing foil shop and paddleboard shop. And he's a kayaker, and he said, hey, tell the guys around the area today that there's a big shark around, and he saw a seal that had been hit really badly by a shark. So, that's one of the reasons it's uncrowded up there. But so Brian and I walk around the point, and I'm trying to get him to go in the water, and he's just not having it. He goes, like in the movie, it says, I'll tell the Coast Guard where I last saw you.
Yeah,
it was really...
You're referring to Riding Giants, right? That's a movie.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Yeah, just for me to understand. And so, but you went. You had the courage to go and take the board.
I went.
Yeah.
And it wasn't, I took the board that I had. It wasn't a Mavericks board by any sense of what we know that we use now, but I took what I had. And, back then, I didn't have the money to buy a bunch of boards. And my dad really, he was a cop, and those surfer types, those were, the renegades. And, it was interesting. I had one of my teachers, I remember him yelling at me, loser surfer.
Oh my God.
And, different times back then.
Totally different times. And so that first wave at Mavericks was the best wave that you ever surfed over there? Or do you remember like one that was like...
Oh, no, that day was not the biggest day. It wasn't it was very clean and small by today's standards. The face of the waves were in the 20-foot range. The face, not the backs. And now we surf it when it's 40 feet, 50 feet, 60 feet, as long as you have the right tools and the right mentality, whether you're tow surfing, whether you're paddle surfing, even stand-up paddle surfing. I've caught giant waves on a stand-up paddleboard, but I've caught in the early days when I was, the 90s, the early 90s was really my time. That's when I was probably the most fit. I had, from the time that I first paddled out at Mavericks, my thoughts were, man, I need a bigger board. And just like in the Jaws movie, we need a bigger boat. But so I started shaping boards in the garage at home. And actually, my first one I shaped was in 1969 or 68 when one of the Hawaiian, a friend of mine who worked for a Hawaiian board builder, Surfline Hawaii, with Brian Dawson and Jack Shipley. And, this was before those guys created lightning bolt. So he helped me build a board in my garage. And he was a board builder from Hawaii. That his parents lived here in El Granada. So we built this board. We started it in my garage, and then we moved it to his basement, his parents' basement in El Granada. And we finished up this board. It was a 5'9" twin fin. And my nickname was Little Jeff because I could knee paddle a 5'9" twin fin like any of us would paddle a 10-foot longboard now. I mean, I was, barely 100 pounds, 110 pounds maybe. So I had started dabbling with surfboards and that. And in my early teens, I rode everything. The first twin fins that came out of Australia, the John Arnold, and I had a Wainland single fin. I had Mark Angel single fins from Santa Cruz. I went through a lot of boards because I grew up with the ocean right in front of the house, and any and all conditions, I was putting myself in the water. And I started to really understand the ocean and what it could do to you, how powerful it was, and could you, where most people's comfort zone starts to keep them on the beach. A lot of guys stuff in high school. They said, "Yeah, let me pick you up, man. Santa Cruz is giant. It's way too big here." And in the early days, when you're 15, 16 years old, I'm looking at the magazines and like Jackie Dunn was like one of my heroes, surfing big pipeline. And I guess the early days in Hawaii, his nickname was Bam Bam. But I ended up just like having this thirst for power. I loved it when it was powerful. And because it was maybe more risk, I didn't look at it at risk as like, I could take a hit, wipe it out, and I could hold my breath. I think the training I had for surfing was loving jumping in a rip like somebody on a treadmill and surfing. We get really good waves around here in strong rip currents. So that was kind of like my training. And get on that treadmill until your arms by the end of mid-winter, you're in such good shape that you could go chase down anything. So, having that real thirst for power and bigger waves, I started to look to the horizon for bigger and bigger surf that was good surf.
And so, in effect, like my mind now is wandering in a lot of questions because it's so interesting topic. But maybe a philosophical question: Did Mavericks change between the time that you were surfing and today, or everything stayed the same?
Let's see. Did Mavericks change? You know, it I know. Well, the amount of people in the lineup has changed.
Of course.
But as far as the waves, it makes me wonder because there was the ledge that comes up on the right wasn't as extreme. It seemed like in the early days. Like say the well, I don't know actually. I know that the '89 earthquake changed a reef, changed one of my favorite reefs around here. But as far as Mavericks and that reef changing, I think the waves are pretty much the same. Mavericks has the most beautiful left. The wave, if you can get in onto the face, the wave is pure all the way to the bottom. It's so smooth. Whereas the right, it's almost like you're going cross grain. The wave naturally breaks like a natural left, a pure peeling left, as it is off the peak and to the bottom and the big barrel. And then the right, well, we saw Peter Mel get one of the most amazing, the best right backdoor barrel ride ever at Mavericks last year. Going right, a lot of things have to be right. There's a ledge that there's a couple ledges that come out of the face when you go right. And going back to '94 and the wave that Mark Fu fell on that actually took his life, Mavericks has a ledge at the bottom where if you're used to surfing Waimea, you take off, you try to get a turn in, but it jumps right at the takeoff. It jumps, and you need to be underneath those ledges to get down the face. But once you're down on the face, halfway down the face, it's pretty much smooth out through the bottom. Where Mavericks has another ledge at like 3/4 of the way down the face, and if you start to get comfortable with Mavericks, that is one of the things you have to get used to. You can't start a mid-face turn unless you really have the experience to do that and get over the ledge. And what happens is if you make the first half of the wave and then you start leaning into a turn and then you go over that ledge at the bottom, your board will drop away from your feet and you'll face plant. And so there's a lot of technical things happening on the right that you have to take into consideration.
Okay. And in your opinion, what does it take to surf big waves? I mean, you were saying before, the thirst of bigger waves, I guess a lot of courage, but I would like to hear it from you. What does it take?
It's got to come from within you. I mean, I don't think everybody is meant to surf big waves. Otherwise, everyone would surf Mavericks, right?
Yeah.
And if you feel that within you whether it's Mavericks or Giant Ocean Beach, when you see a 20-foot face wave or a 30-foot face wave, start to when you see a wave that big and it's peeling and you just start to want to come out of your skin because you want a piece of it, and it's not from anything else but driven from within you. That's where one day you have all the equipment to ride big waves, and you are out in the lineup with big wave surfers, or you find yourself traveling to surf here or surf there. Another place that or really big waves, you kind of have to pause and how did I get here? Was I pushed here, or did I carve out my own path to get here?
I understand. I understand what you mean, right? It goes beyond the commitment, right?
It's a commitment to yourself. Is what exactly. It's like, man, I want to ride that because you're every time you paddle out at Maverick. Okay, for me, every time I paddle out at Maverick or paddle out at Maverick, I get myself close to the lineup and I feel the swell. I feel the interval. I feel the lift, the power. And that's before I ever paddle into a wave. You need to
connection.
Actually, you have to make that connection to where I do that. And all of a sudden, it's not a real conscious thought. It's just putting yourself in the right place to be successful, to catch a wave and make the wave. And for me, that's how I approach Mavericks. I get in the lineup. I spend some time with that swell. I learn the swell, the power, what it is showing me today. And before you know it, I'm going down the face of a wave because I spent the time to get myself in the right place, and then I'm on a wave because I'm in the right place, and it's just an automatic reaction to go. I'm here. I recognize this. I'm down the face, and you feel like, well, for me, it's like I really don't take off on a wave that I don't think I'm going to make ever.
That's a great teaching, right?
Yeah, for like we see in the last 10 years or maybe even longer, people are taking off on gigantic waves in places there's no way they're going to make it. And for me, it's like, so I'm not going to go on a wave I don't have a chance to make.
Yeah.
Which is like we started the Mavericks Awards, and we'll probably get into that later, but the only way a wave is scored is if you make it. Because that's the surfing that I grew up with. It's a great wave. Too bad you didn't. A nice barrel. Too bad you didn't make it. That rang true for me growing up. If you didn't make the wave, well, it didn't really count, right?
Yeah, of course it doesn't count.
And when you get into waves like Mavericks, if you don't make the wave, you're putting yourself at risk, and you're putting the rescue guys at risk because now they have to come and get you.
Yeah, exactly.
They don't have to. I surfed there many days where I got washed through the rocks and swam to try and find my board. And that was just part of the game. So when I made my decision to go on a wave, it was that I was going to make that wave.
It's about awareness as well, like you need to be aware of your surrounding. You need to be aware of what you want and what you're gonna get, right? So sometimes it's better to abort to launch. I don't know if I use the same the good terminology, but to stop rather than to take any wave and to risk your life for it, right? And so, but it's a long topic and discussion. You were in so far in our interview, you named a lot of famous surfers that you met in your life. Was there a particular meeting with one of them that is particularly meaningful for you? Do you remember?
I think that in the early days, Richard Schmidt and Jay Moriarty Jay Moriarty was literally my tow partner. And him and I teamed up, and it was really cool. We had so much fun laughing where others maybe would have been screaming to get or freaking out about the situations we were in. Just literally playing in gigantic waves, like two kids playing in a sandbox. It was just really fun. Jay was 20 years younger than I was. We looked at the ocean in very much the same way. So I got him trained up on using a jet ski, and he would come up and there'd be nobody around, and we would go out, and there were nobody surfing Mavericks on some of these days too. Nobody around. And we would go out and tow and play out at the peak at Mavericks. He towed me into some of the best left barrels I've ever gotten out there. And where you're in so early, you set a really deep line, you turn off the bottom and you stall, and then you let the wave wrap around you, and then you carve your S turns out through the end of the barrel. Just really playful, fun stuff. So Jay was, it was when I got that fateful call from Bob Pearson. He said, "Jeff, you might want to sit down." When he told me about Jay drowning was just tragic, horrible. Tears can't be held back from losing somebody like him.
It's always difficult, and then of course for you was a dear friend. So, but thank you so much for sharing. It means a lot. Also during the interview, you just briefly you were referring to the fact that you started to shape your own boards, right? So I started this interview asking you, what is the most important thing in surfing? Of course, you answer me. If I have to ask you the same thing in shaping, so what is the most important thing in shaping? What would you answer me?
Having the right equipment for this wave. I watched Ken Bradshaw come over and surf Mavericks, and he left all his boards, gave them away because they did not work at Maverick, because our ocean is a different ocean than Hawaii. Hawaii, you're in 70-degree water, and at Mavericks, you're in 50-degree water. So the viscosity of the water changes. It's like 10-weight gear oil versus, 10-weight, it's like water versus 50-weight gear oil. And at speed, the water becomes harder than 70-degree water in Hawaii. And so you have to create a relationship between the board and the water at speed. So I found myself designing the bottoms of the boards quite differently than what you would ride in Hawaii. And being able to ride those waves and to feel the board that I designed and shaped under my feet was so powerful for me being comfortable. It was key, because I've seen guys, a lot of guys out there on boards where the shaper has never ridden waves like Mavericks. Their outcomes through their careers could have been much different. And I'm talking the early days, like the late 90s, early 2000s. The shapers around the world hadn't really caught up to what needed to be ridden at Mavericks.
Yeah. It takes experience as a surfer to be able to shape for certain condition, right? Understanding of the wave, understanding of all the metrics, if you want to call them like that are.
And some shapers are lucky enough to have really gifted writers that can translate what they want out of a board. And there are some relationships that are just, amazing, that they were quick to step up to the task and challenge of building really good boards. I still see a lot of shapes that, cold water shaping is different than warm water shaping. That's for sure. But
and it's definitely an evolution of shaping that helped surfers to surf better waves, even in Mavericks, right? So before we were saying that what changed, from the beginning to now. Of course, a lot of things change. Maybe the waves remain the same, but of course, like the ability to create a tool, if you want to say, like a surfboard that is helping to surf better on those conditions. That's super important.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yes. And then you see the talent like Lucas Chumbo and Lucas Chianca and Kai Lenny.
Yeah.
And the cross pollination from windsurfing, paddleboarding, kiting for Kai to ride things that were not exactly ridden in the surfing industry, to cross into what he rides at Mavericks and what he rides at Peahi. There's a really gifted individual there that has the foresight and he's able to translate his needs to his shaper.
Yeah,
it's really cool.
Yeah, I understand what you mean. So looking at your Instagram and reading about you, I know that you keep yourself extremely busy, a lot of projects. You were referring before about the Mavericks Award, before maybe, a couple of years ago, Titans of Mavericks. You are like doing speech, motivator, you are in foiling. So a lot of projects. What's next for you? Like something you're working on today that is very important for you?
Right now, I'm at going on 3 months of a pretty severe injury to my spine and my right shoulder and the nerves. And my challenge is getting healthier right now, overcoming this injury, and praying every day before I walk out the door, because I know where all of the gifts that God has given me have come from. And I thank him every day for the path I've been able to follow. And I'm thankful for my life and the things, and my children and my children's children. Many beautiful things have come from I don't know where, from God.
No, of course.
I believe in God, and people ask me about surfing Mavericks alone, and I never thought that I wasn't coming home. I asked for protection. I think I'm still here because my journey and my work is not over.
Exactly. There is always like a hand on top of ourselves that protect us, and and it's good to believe in that and to be reassured by. Of course, I agree with you.
I've found myself in many situations that the hand of the Lord was in it to get me out of it. Because when I got washed up on the rocks in the early 90s, I broke my leash after the left. I was going left, and I pulled up in the barrel, and I got swatted. It clamshit closed on me, and I came up, and there was another wave right there, and I went down under that, and I and I came up, and that wave, the whitewater, broke my board in half. And
Oh, wow.
I'm like, okay, I'm looking in, and my board's tombstoning, and it's just half a board. And now I'm in a situation where I've got something dragging me toward the rocks. And after the next wave, I came up, I saw how far the wave was away from me. I took a breath. Went down. I tried to get my leash off my leg, and I wear webs. I wore webs, and in all the pictures of the biggest waves I've paddled into, I've had webs on. And my webs prevented me from getting the Velcro off my leg. And so I got mauled again, and I came up again, and I tried to get it off my leg. And by this time, I was right in front of Sail Rock, and I just stopped everything. And my thought was, well, a lot of things got to happen right for me to get out of this one. And whether that was a prayer, I think it was. I felt the white water come over me and up against the rock, and I didn't hit the rock, but I felt the repercussion off the rock, and then it started swirling me around the rock. And Jay and I had swam out there in front of Sail Rock in the summertime, and it makes a whirlpool, and it goes down. And so I could feel that, and I'm getting pushed around this rock and around the next rock. All of a sudden, I was in the back eddy behind the rock, and I searched for handholds, and I held on, and the thing, my board's still tombstoning. It's trying to pull me off this rock. And if that would have happened, that would have been a very, very bad thing in hindsight, looking back at it. So I was able to hold on, and then and I was high and dry when the wave finished going by. And then the next thing I knew, I was underwater again, and I'm holding on, but my leg rope let go, and it was loose. So when the water went down again, I was able to climb up on the rock. I'm on top of this rock, which is behind Sail Rock, and I got rid of that leash, which was trying to kill me. And I spent the next 25 minutes on that rock, and I knew I had the time because I had to get off at low tide. And right at slack tide, the waves stopped long enough for me to dive in behind Sail Rock, where I know there's a hole, and swim 100 yards northeast around all the other reefs that would have been really bad had I been drug in there. So I was able to swim around, come up on the reef.
Scary situation, and as we said before, there was a hand of God somewhere helping you.
Absolutely.
So
when you can't do it yourself, there's a higher power that's got your back.
Yeah, we hope so. So we're gonna finish our interview with a short Q&A session, question and answer. So please answer the first thing that comes up to your mind, okay? So the best surfboard that you ever ridden?
I have a 10-foot single fin that I made it in, and I made the fin to go with it because the fin is so important. So yeah, 10-foot single fin.
Your favorite shaper?
I'm kind of biased on that one. I love to ride what I make.
Okay, that's good. Personal question, your favorite song?
Oh my God. It's probably Time Waits for No One by the Rolling Stones.
Okay, that's great. A legendary group. Your favorite surf spot? I think I know the answer, right?
Yeah, Mavericks or Ocean Beach.
That was, I think it was. Your favorite surfer of all time?
Jock Sutherland was my favorite surfer as a kid. Jock Sutherland.
So still today, of course. And the last question is a little bit unusual, has nothing to do with surf or big waves. I ask everybody on this show, I want to know your best relationship advice. So since you said that you are a father and a grandfather, I'm sure you have a good advice for all of us.
Take the time to enjoy where you are at.
Yeah. That also the suggestion of the Rolling Stones, or no? Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. Jimi Hendrix was my other favorite.
Okay. But timeless band and timeless Jimi Hendrix, of course, an icon of music. So thanks a lot for being on the show with me today. And I look forward to talk to you very soon. You've been very kind.
Thank you much. And I can't wait to see what you put out there.
Of course. Bye-bye. Hi, it's me again. I hope you enjoyed our today's episode. If you want to know more about us, please follow www.thetempleofsurf.com and all our social media. Mahalo!